Okay, I'm not here to tell anyone how to live their life, but hear me out. If you're decorating with these and not eating these, you're doing fall wrong. These type 2. These are really, really delicious. But this is my favorite type for soup. So yeah, let's cut it open and roast it. This is a Jarrahdale pumpkin, and they were originally bred in Australia. And this type of pumpkin is super fleshy, like very, very thick. So you have all of this to cook. So think of it as like a butternut squash, but much sweeter and with like a pumpkin-y and a nutty flavor. So you just have to scoop this part out. And this is my favorite little pumpkin scooper. This was in a pumpkin carving kit that I got like, I don't know, 20 years ago, and it still works. So I just go around the edges here and just scoop inward and just get the seeds out. Now, these seeds are just like pumpkin seeds. So those are roast. You can roast and eat these too. Yeah, look at all those seeds. These are even thicker than regular pumpkin seeds, but they're just as good. So we set that aside. And if you don't feel like doing the work to roast them, you can also just rinse them off and give them to the wildlife like I do. Okay, so preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit and make sure you lower that rack because these guys are big and they need a lot of room. So just be careful about that. Another little trick is to sit here and pull the seeds out and drop them in a nice jar. That way you can put the lid on it and a little bit of water and shake it up and clean those out and then rinse them and they're good to go. All right, I'm gonna keep going and pull these out, and while I'm talking about this, I'm gonna tell you a little story. Not that anyone wants to know, but a few years ago, I really got into cooking pumpkins just because it was really nutritious, and honestly, it's very cost effective for cooking and eating, and you get a lot of nutritional benefits. But I went to a farm stand and I was looking for a very specific type of pumpkin, like a Cinderella pumpkin. They're specifically cultivated for their sweetness and their edibility. And while I was there, I was waiting for the farm stand to open, and I saw the perfect pumpkin and I wanted it. And I was able to scurry up to it really quick and snatch it. And behind me, I hear a voice from an old woman going, "Are you going to eat that or decorate with it?" And this woman was a very, very old Russian woman, extremely thick accent. And I turned around and I smiled because I could sense that she was pretty angry. And I said, "Yes, I am going to eat this. I make," and then I listed all of the things that I make with pumpkin. And that I am not one of those women that just buy hundreds of pounds of food to sit on my porch and let it rot while people and animals around the world starve. So it's just something that I think about often, how hard it must be to come from a country with nothing and to see Americans take their pumpkins and never ever use them and just let them rot on their front porch and end up in the dumpster. Now, I'm not saying that I don't decorate with gourds and non-edible food, gourd items, and I don't always, get that seed. I do, when I've come across a pumpkin that I've picked that has started to rot, I will put that on my porch as decoration, and I don't get mad when the animals come and eat it. So I like to think that that's not being wasteful. But yes, we in America have access to lots and lots of pumpkins and gourds, but it's kind of silly to me that everybody is just buying them to let them rot when they don't know how darn good these things are and how good they are for you. So the next time you go to the store and you see a gourd or a pumpkin or something that you would think, oh, this would look great on my porch, maybe research that type of gourd or pumpkin and see what its edibility is like before putting it out there to rot. Just something to think about. And the end of that conversation with that woman, we ended up chatting for quite a while. She said to me, and this was probably the greatest compliment of my life, where she says, "You're all right for an American." And I know that we aren't liked universally across the world, especially because we're so wasteful. So I was glad that I could be like a positive interaction for her with someone from America, because we talked about all the things that we cook that most people wouldn't eat, because I'm all about saving money and not wasting. And she was wonderful. And in fact, after that, I decided to learn Russian, and I have been learning Russian for more than 3 years now, because of that interaction with her. So it's a very powerful story in my life, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. All right, I'm gonna finish cooking these up. Do that little last scraping, get it in a glass bowl, poke some holes in it, and get it in the oven. Also, one more thing, this is wonderful composting material. So all the guts on the inside, once you take the seeds out. If you have a compost bin, this is wonderful stuff to put in there. All right, and these are ready to go in the oven. The last thing we need to do is poke some holes in this. That's gonna allow the steam to escape. I have found that if you don't do this, they'll be too wet and they'll collapse under their weight. So just poke some holes in it, have fun with it. I find that a long, thin knife is better than a big, thick one. So, and then for this size, I recommend a minimum of 1.5 hours. So at that point, after an hour, what I'll do is I'll check and I will poke a knife through, and if it comes out super soft, then I know it's done. If you poke in and you hit something kind of hard, because these are much the texture of a hard potato. So you're gonna feel the hardness. You'll feel some pushback when you're sticking the knife in to check it. And this whole thing should fit in the oven. There have been times where I've cooked even larger pumpkins. So this is by far like the best size. Like when I went and picked it out of the patch, I was like, okay, is this gonna fit in my Pyrex? And so I kind of know just from experience of how big something can be to fit in my pan. Yeah, that's how long I've been doing this. So, all right, let's get this in the oven. This is definitely a two-hand job. These are very heavy, so be careful. You just slide those on in. And it's important to use deep dishes, the Pyrex dishes, because there's a lot of moisture in these and it'll accumulate in there, and you don't want that all over your oven. I've made that mistake before. Okay, so set that timer for 1 hour and then check it. So I always do a solid hour on that size, and then I check it about every 20 minutes. And yes, my dishes aren't done. I'm a human, don't hate me. But we're gonna work with these and get these all clean and ready. So under cold water, let me get those. If you guys don't have one of these, if you ever get a chance to update your kitchen sink, oh my goodness, get one of these. They're ugly, but gosh, they're functional. This is the best way to clean seeds. Look how clean they're getting. This high spray is really the key to getting stuff clean. Let's see. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'll probably give it just a couple more rinses, and then we'll be good. And what I do is I put them out on a tray and I let them dry, and then I put them in a baggie and I give them to the squirrels as treats. All right, I just took these out. Took about 1.5 hours. They should be like this, you guys. So just, oh yeah. And then usually up here there's a little bit of resistance, but it's not bad. All nice and done. You might think that these look burnt, but we don't eat the skin, so it's fine. So we're gonna wait a little bit for them to cool, just a little bit, and then what we do is we slice, open it, and scoop. All right, it's been about 20 minutes. You don't wanna cut into these while they're still boiling because that steam can burn. So what I do is I just go ahead and I cut through each side. Very easy. I just kind of open it up like a clam. You can see all that steam, so watch out. I go like that. And I start scooping 1/2 at a time. I do a nice big bowl. And we get all this good stuff out. So you might be asking yourself, that is a lot of pumpkin. What am I gonna do with it all? I can't just eat pumpkin and have just pumpkin soup. Pumpkin is extremely versatile. I mean, you can make pies. I love making pumpkin butter. So I'll put this in a crock pot with sugar and spices and get it like a nice, really thick consistency on low for about like 12 hours. And then another thing I like to do is this is extremely nutritious for cats and dogs. So when my kitties are a little constipated and they need a treat, I will take cooked pumpkin and I will mix it with tuna to help them go to the bathroom because it's full of fiber. And that is something that you can do for your pets. And it's not like this goes bad if you freeze it because it freezes really, really well. So what I do is I'll get it all mashed up and then I'll put it in gallon Ziploc bags and lay it flat and then pop it in the freezer. And then I can just break off a chunk when I need it for the cats or if I want to add it to a recipe or some sauces. It just really is the perfect versatile vegetable. And I really, really, really encourage all of you to try it out instead of letting pumpkin sit and be wasted. So right now I'm using this and I'm going to make a soup. So if you hang in there, you can watch me make a soup. And then I am gonna save a little portion of this and feed it to Howie. All right, so I start with 7 cups of pumpkin. And depending on how watery your pumpkin is, you're gonna wanna add water. I added 4 cups. I went ahead and put this on medium to low heat while I do this. What I do is I get an emulsion blender and I make this completely smooth. So depending on your preferred consistency, I like mine a lot like applesauce, but I'm gonna keep going until this is perfectly smooth. If you wanted a soupier soup, you can always add more water, or if you end up adding your 4 cups of water and you're not happy with the consistency, you can always add more pumpkin in. So once I get it to this consistency, because I like it a little thicker because I like to put it in bread bowls and ruin my life with carbs. So I like to just kind of do a final stir, and if I see any lumps, I kind of attack them with the emulsion blender to just make this nice and smooth. So I'm gonna go ahead and start adding chicken bouillon. If you're vegan, you can use vegetable bouillon or anything else, and then I'll show you the other things I put in. So this is my formula for seasoning. I put in 7 cups of pumpkin puree. So I'm gonna go ahead and do 7 of the cubes so that it's seasoned right. And then you have to account for the 4 cups of water. And what I do with that is I do a Lipton Onion soup pack, which is enough seasoning to season the other 4 cups. All right, I added the cubes. Now, if you are using larger bouillon cubes, make sure that you account for that. It would only be 4.5 cubes if you're using the large ones that are made for 2 cups of water. These ones are the small ones that are made for 1 cup of water to make the bouillon. And then I'm gonna add in 1 block of cream cheese, and I will cut that up and throw that in. If you don't do dairy or cheese, or if you're vegan, I'm sure there's other options for cream cheese that would make this just as creamy. And at this point, this is where you gauge the consistency of your soup. This is very, very thick. I like it thick, but I also don't want to choke on it. So I'm going to add a little bit of water and another bouillon cube. So probably 1 more cup of water and 1 bouillon cube. All right, after adding that additional water and the other cube, this is looking a little bit better, like I like. It's important to be flexible on the water to pumpkin ratio, simply because each pumpkin can be either watery or extremely dense, and then the soup doesn't work on that ratio if the pumpkin is extremely dense. So now that I'm done blending it, it looks perfectly smooth, no lumps. I'm gonna start adding in my final ingredients that don't need to be blended. All right, and then 1 Lipton onion soup mix. Now this isn't vegan, so if you wanted to make yours vegan, you could do the vegetable bouillon, and then I would add dehydrated onion and liquid aminos to give it that same taste. I think the importance of having these little onions in there really gives the texture of the soup a nice mouthfeel. And from here, we'll salt, pepper to taste. I do like to add in a little bit of cayenne pepper. If you don't like any spice, you can omit this, but I really like that little finish of heat on the end. And some parsley for color. And this can all be done in a crock pot too, if you don't want to cook on the stove and you'd like to just throw in that block of cream cheese and let things just kind of do their thing. But I really feel like that blending it in that way to get it perfectly smooth is what makes everything really good. But this is a pretty simple recipe. There's really not much to it. There's a lot of work with the pumpkin, but this is really good. And then we'll serve it in a bread bowl. We'll just let it simmer for about 5 minutes while those onions cook up a little bit in there. All right, and here we have our finished bread bowl with pumpkin soup. Now, I didn't make the bread bowl. I just bought it and cut it out because I didn't have time for that today. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Guess what, Howie? Look, I roasted a pumpkin for you. You want to try it? It's pumpkin. Can you do happy mouth for pumpkin? What do you think?
It's good. Thanks, Mom.
Is it good? You love pumpkin. Yum, 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 yum.